thank you. And after that last presentation, I was sort of thinking, well, I feel like changing my topic to present some of our School of Law plagiarism research, but maybe I'll write that up instead. Now today, I'm getting a bit old school, going with flexi school design issues. I'm really talking about face-to-face teaching, whereas the rest of it, or a lot of this forum, has been about online teaching. And, well, why is someone from the School of Law going old school, face-to-face, considering particularly since the LLB's been fully online since 2005, and I taught my first online course in 1999, so we do a lot of this online teaching. And it's because since we went online in 2005, the School of Law has increased our flexi school offerings in order to ensure that we've got some balance. And the reasons for this, well, first of all, we think the face-to-face teaching is important. It gives distance students many benefits. First of all, they get to know staff and they get to know other students, and so it helps them to build support networks. Second, some skills development is certainly easier to do face-to-face. And flexi schools probably help to improve retention and pass rates. That's an assumption that we work on. So there's lots of benefits for the students. And also, it allows the School of Law and other units as well to offer delivery of courses by guest lecturers. So we can offer more and more interesting, more current courses. Finally, School of Law is liking flexi schools because it's also enabling flexibility in balancing School of Law teaching workload. In particular, we can stack our teaching, so you do a couple of flexi schools and a heavy semester, and then you get a semester off to do some of your research and some of your admin, or write up your research. So we've increased our flexi school offerings, but then this led to problems. By 2007, it was apparent that we were having a number of problems, particularly to do with quality issues, with the content of flexi schools, the length of flexi schools, who the instructors were and their teaching approaches, and as well how the courses were being assessed. These problems were particularly, but not exclusively, in relation to visiting lecturers. So the approach of the School of Law to fix this, or the immediate solution, was to stop using visiting lecturers. But of course, this doesn't actually cure the underlying design issues. Oh, going the wrong way. Okay, so our central issue here for us was comparability with semester-long courses. And comparability here, particularly to do with the amount of teaching, and as well, so the amount of teaching in terms of the hours that students get in contact time, and as well the length of the teaching period, whether all the teaching is done over 1 week or 2 weeks or 6 weeks. And also, in thinking about this, we have to think about some constraints. In particular, there's time limits in the July period. You've only got 4 weeks from the end of exams to the beginning of the next semester, so you can't go too long. As well, the longer you go, the more expensive it is. It increases costs for students who maybe are unable to take on work while they're doing a flexi. It also increases costs for USP in terms of paying for the per diems for the lecturer who is at a remote site. Now, when I began looking at this, obviously we'd identified the problem, we'd begun to try and think about some policies, and I knew I had to do some flexi school teaching. Began to look around, how am I going to do this? And I couldn't see any clear model. Now, I've done flexi schools for the School of Law. I've also recently done flexi schools for biology at USP, done flexis for the USP MBA program. In January, I'm doing one for Otago University, and I'm also beginning to work with Auckland Uni on some flexis for them. I've also seen all kinds of flexi schools running at Emilus in all kinds of different disciplines. There was no clear model that I could discern. There was nothing I could just grab and copy. So, where did I start? No, it's being efficient in my work, not plagiarism, it's just not reinventing the wheel. Okay, so the course I was doing was LW 338, which was anti-corruption law. For my sins, I had to teach this in Fiji in July 2010. And the course needed major redesign anyway, because Fiji very kindly had almost entirely changed the laws since I taught the course last, and as well my textbook had gone out of print, so I had to redesign it. So what did I start with? I wanted this course to replicate a semester of face-to-face teaching. So all of our law courses and the course guides needed to define learning outcomes. I wanted to have the same learning outcomes. I wanted to have the same course content. I also wanted to have the same expectations of students in terms of student workload. There were minor differences only in teaching and minor differences in assessment. What else with this course? It was designed for a medium-sized class, which in law is about 40 to 50 students. We'd capped the numbers at 50 because I was experimenting. I didn't want an 80-student class. As well, the majority of our law courses are hybrids of online and face-to-face, and so this course, again, was written as a hybrid. In terms of my principles of design, or more principles of design, I guess, the equivalence of student workload. Student workload was 160 hours, and this is based loosely on Faculty of Arts and Law guidelines. Law is slightly lower than standard Faculty of Arts and Law student workload guidelines, because our students do 4 courses per semester. So 10 hours per week over 16 weeks, 4 courses, 40-hour week. The specific instructions given to students are up there in italics, and students were told that, including Saturdays, there are 20 course days, and you're expected to spend about 8 hours per day, including class time, on the course. And this means students who are able to work full-time, who would be unable to work full-time while undertaking the course. So, but that was where I started. Student hours, student workload, needed to be the same. Now, because I was trying to replicate a face-to-face teaching experience, I also wanted equivalence of classroom hours. Now, in law courses, the usual semester is 14 weeks of teaching, 14 topics, and as well you've got a mid-semester break and a study week. And in law courses, usually there's a 2-hour lecture or 2 one-hour lectures, and then 2 hours of workshop time or tutorial time. With the Flexi School, rather than 14 weeks of teaching, I had 14 days of teaching, 1 topic per day. I also had a 1-day break and 2 revision days. There was also equivalence of assessed outcomes. The class structure was based on an 8 to 10 lecture, and this lecture was lecturer-led or passive, or lecturer-driven or passive learning, where I was lecturing to the students. I normally don't lecture, but this time I did. Then they had a 1-hour break to give them a chance to get over 2 hours of being taught back, and also gave them time for questions. Then from 11 to 1 there was a workshop, and in this workshop it was student-led or active learning, where students were in groups discussing problems and questions. Then the groups would all sort of report back together, and as a class we'd collaboratively identify the answers. Then in the afternoon, students were free, and they were told specifically to consolidate the day's material, what they had done in the day, and then prepare for the next day. In terms of preparation, I couldn't expect too much because there wasn't time. So preparation involved, for the lecture, printing and skimming the PowerPoint, and as well as skimming the brief topic notes on Moodle, but not actually looking at the readings. And then the workshop preparation involved printing off the worksheet and getting the material needed for the workshop, but not actually figuring out the answers. We did that in class. And students were explicitly told, don't do the readings before class, it's really inefficient. The way I got through being a student is I'd go to the lectures, I'd hear what the lecturer had to say, and then I'd do the readings to fill in the gaps and make sure everything made sense. So helping students with active reading and sort of efficient study practice. The afternoon as well for me, there were student consultation hours. What was nice for me is afternoons turned out to be free. Students used the break, and I didn't need to see them, so I had my afternoons to write the next day's lecture. Assessment, they had a problem assignment with 25% and a group work legal literacy brochure. In the study guide, our study guides require us to state the rationale for assessments. So it said the assignments require students to demonstrate different types of thinking and skills. Legal research, writing, legal problem solving and communication to non-lawyers. And the group work assignment also develops teamwork and planning skills. Because in law we try and make sure everything is aimed at our graduate skills or our graduate attributes. The assessment design, usually I have a lower exam, but I needed to go for a 40% internal, 60% exam because I didn't think I'd have time to do marking. As well, students had to attend. And attendance was set because I assumed that it takes longer to sort of learn the substantive knowledge if you're doing it on your own. That it would be quicker coming to lectures, and so I wanted people there. So they were my background principles and what I did. And you can see there from the two schedules, on one side is the flexi school schedule broken down by days. On the other side is my schedule if I teach the course over a semester, broken down by weeks. The only major difference is that the assessments would come earlier in the full semester schedule, which gives me time to mark them, gives students more time to reflect on their feedback. In terms of the student feedback, and I collected other feedback as well, this is just some of it, I had 46 students who ended up completing the course, 37 forms returned. I had one student drop out because of family reasons, and another student who was meant to be in the course and didn't get told until week 3 that she'd been accepted into the course. So that's 46 students ended up in the course, and they were explicitly asked to consider course design. Okay, the general overview, the vast majority said, look, this was about right in terms of the course length. It was also about right in terms of the teaching time, and the internal assessment was about right. As well, there was lots of qualitative feedback from students on the forms along the lines of, this is best flexi school design, School of Law should use this for every single flexi school, and so on. In terms of the workshops, or the group work, which would be a little bit different for distance students. And here they've been explained, look, this is giving you a chance to work with other students and discuss, and hopefully sort of form some links. And there's a danger for students who aren't used to this, that they might find it a bit of a waste of time. They just want to be spoon-fed the answers. Again, the majority of them found it was very useful, the workshops and the discussion. 4 of them said, look, it's okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. But of those 4 who said it was okay, 3 of them, there was another question, said the workshops helped their understanding. Comments by students, overwhelmingly positive. The 1-hour break was really useful. The day off when the assignment was due was excellent. I built this spare day into the schedule in case of disaster, and there were no disasters, so I could use it for the assignment. If you can do that, fantastic. Lectures in the morning, half day were ideal, and as well being flexible. We cancelled some classes because everyone was tired. No problem at all. No point in having classes if people are too tired to learn anything. But there were some issues. First of all, some working students couldn't do the course. Second, there was no time off between the end of semester 1 exams and the beginning of semester 2. Some people didn't like coming to school at 8 in the morning, said they wanted to sleep in. And for law students, 1/3 of them thought that every flexi needs oral assessments. Conclusions. For the future, look, this model works really well to replicate the semester of face-to-face teaching with a medium-sized class. And for USP lecturers who are already doing this teaching, it makes it really easy to deliver a flexi school in a structured way. It is a good model. As well, whilst I saw the attendance requirements taking a role, I thought, oh, this is going to be a bit silly. It was great. I got to know all the students' names. And then I could call on people, and it created a really collegial environment. And the lecture and workshop format also worked really well. For me personally, the assessment structure worked well. And in terms of turnaround, we talked about that. For 15 group assignments, they were turned around in 2 days. In 46 problem assignments of sort of 2,500 to 3,000 words, they were turned around in 4 days. And that was done by using a mark sheet and a model answer rather than a marking matrix. I personally find marking matrices slow. Calling on students to speak worked well. Everyone had to participate because I knew their names. And flexibility of the classes, really important. But am I here saying, yes, we got it right, this is the only way? Absolutely not. This is not the only model. First of all, it's not possible for some students to study this way. It also might be difficult for guest lecturers to fit in with the structure. It doesn't allow students in more research-focused courses to do their research, and this wasn't about postgraduate courses. It also doesn't consider multimodal or hybrid teaching, in particular the possibility of block teaching, doing a few days at the beginning and then giving online material or print material for students to work through. And there might be other hybrid teaching. It's also probably not a suitable model for courses that are taught flexibly, so not week by week, during our standard semester 1 or semester 2, because students are likely to also be doing other courses at the same time. Moving forward, where do we go to from here, at least in the School of Law? School of Law, what we try and do is to develop policy or guidelines to help people do their jobs and get it down into writing, so we're not reinventing the wheel all the time. So first of all, the policy, it must help lecturers to design and deliver courses. And that's why we do this. We don't make policy for fun. But this policy must allow flexibility. It can't be based on set contact hours or a single rigid model, because one model doesn't fit all. And it must allow for courses taught flexibly in semester time as well. In terms of moving forward, we've already got some standardised material and standardised procedures in the School of Law, and these should continue to be used. Where we're at the moment is probably a handbook for flexi school teachers with guidelines on procedures, because we've already got a School of Law standard course guide which requires learning outcomes and explaining rationale for assessments. Guidelines for lecturers concerning student hours, expected student hours over the course, and as well how to design a course that takes into account student hours, because lecturers don't always know that. As well, we've already got guidelines on various assessment options and assessment policies, and giving some models, only as guidelines. My time's up, so my very last point is that as I was doing this, and with feedback from the School of Law staff, it became really apparent that as all courses should be based on these principles, whether they're taught over a semester face-to-face, or as a flexi, or online, it doesn't really matter. And the value of this handbook isn't only limited to flexis, because really, what I've ended up talking about is conscious design of all courses. Thank you.
It's a reminder that all of these papers will be available, they're all being videoed and audioed, and we'll also put together a sort of a catalogue thing so that if you want to have more direct contact with the presenter, so that you can get a copy, that would be useful, I think. So we'll make sure that they're widely disseminated. Now, questions, comments? I'm going to go with you. Very briefly, I guess.
Thank you. Just to, I'm actually quite surprised that you feel that there's no university-wide guidelines on flexi schools. There is an unwritten university rule that flexi schools are 6 weeks long, minimum 4, maximum 6. There is a very good reason for that. One of the things we haven't done and we need to do is actually formalise these things, you know, taking your experience, so on and so forth. Again, I think it's peculiar to faculties. My faculties always had a set of guidelines which we follow based on exactly that. To us, a flexi school is exactly the same as a face-to-face course, and therefore the processes followed up exactly the same, including moderation of examinations, assessments, and so on, research, and things that are included. So I think for us it's an important thing to bring it all together into what everybody does.
Just as a response to that, absolutely. I think, and I've had up on an earlier slide and ran out of time, School of Law has had massive staff turnover. And one of the things is that these unwritten ideas, we've now had massive staff turnover, and one of them, okay, School of Law is not, we're a little bit new at the moment. If we had written down what we did when we knew what we did, life would be so much easier. So for people like yourselves who at the moment are pretty stable, you know what you're doing, get it written down, so when you have massive staff turnover, people coming in know what to do.
That's part of the innovation. No, I think that's right, but we also need to keep it current, technology and the other things, so, and where the students are coming from, so, you know, let's talk about the flexi schools.
Anita, how do the pass rates in flexi schools compare with the face-to-face classes?
Well, this particular course has only been offered twice, and the pass rates in this particular course were very comparable. I did have 3 failures, unfortunately, 2 of them due to plagiarism and dishonest practice, which isn't very good in an anti-corruption law course, and 1 just had a disaster with an exam. But otherwise, very comparable. And as well, what I find is students who pass at a distance but scrape through at a distance turn into A students when they've got you there and they are concentrated for 4 weeks on a flexi school. So pass rates about comparable, but sort of achievement rates in terms of A's or C's better in a flexi.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. If there's any more questions, we will move to the next presenter so that we